Well, I now have a 100% success rate at predicting 25% of the Artemis cruise, as many of you went into my comments and pointed out. So let's dive in a little deeper and break down who NASA did actually pick for the Artemis III mission. Yesterday, the Artemis batons were passed, and NASA announced that the crew of Artemis III would be made up of NASA astronauts Randy Bresnik, Andre Douglas, and Frank Rubio, and ESA, European Space Agency astronaut Luca Parmitano. As a bonus, they also announced that Bob Hines, also a NASA astronaut, would be the backup crew member for Artemis III, which I was kind of surprised about, and I didn't include a backup astronaut in my predictions at all because last time the Artemis II backups were announced much later. Now, I made a video predicting who I thought was going to be on the Artemis III crew, which I'll still link down in the description if you're curious for my initial reasoning for getting to this point, and the only one that I got spot on was Luca Parmitano, which I am very happy about. For your viewing pleasure, here is my reaction to realizing that I did at least guess Luca right. Pilot.
Two-time flyer, ESA astronaut, the first Italian space station commander, an Italian Air Force colonel and test pilot, Luca Parmitano.
Called it. Luca! Oh, Luca's gonna be so great. Oh, he's gonna make this mission so fun. I love this already. Andre, Frank, and Bob were all on my short list, but I fumbled on the final choice. And Randy, I did not clock at all. For reference, I also got one crew member right in my guesses for Artemis II. I predicted at that time Stephanie Wilson, David St. Jacques, Anne McLean, and Reed Wiseman for Artemis II. So I guess this time I continued my 25% correct streak, and I guess the lesson is for Artemis IV, you can assume that one person that I guess will be going to the moon. Now, I want to dive more into some of the potential reasoning behind some of these Artemis III choices and more about the crew members, especially Randy, who I had ruled out early. But first, I do need to address an elephant in the room. There are no women on this crew. I have to mention this because I am just legitimately surprised about the probability that that would happen given the shortlist I had put together on who I thought would get the call. And in total, I think about 39% of the active astronauts right now are women. And of that list I put together, 47% of the shortlist that I thought was people that I thought legitimately were available and qualified to be on this mission were women too. NASA did put out a statement about this today, given a lot of the backlash that they've gotten, which essentially, as my friend Science Sam rephrased it, said that given the available and eligible pool based on who they're slating and training for future missions and are therefore ineligible for this one, this was the most logical crew choice. And I've been struggling to put my thoughts into words a little bit on this because I can see the comments now whenever you talk about something like this. I do not think that NASA intentionally excluded women from this mission by any means. However, as I broke down in my predictions video, there are a lot of qualified women that I thought could have filled at least one of these seats. I mean, and I am by no means perfect. I missed Randy on the short list and I've only guessed one crew member on Artemis 2 and 3. I'm operating with incomplete information. I don't know who's already going to be assigned to Artemis 4 potentially and it hasn't been announced. Personal life situations, if someone's retiring soon, if someone's already assigned to an upcoming ISS mission and it hasn't been announced to the public yet. But I did think that naturally a woman was going to be NASA's best option for one of these slots. Just for a point of numbers and reference, we've had a lot of commercial crew missions that have gone to the space station in recent years. We've had 11 four-person crews and we have another one that's already assigned. Of those, only one has had all men on board. Usually there's been a woman that was the perfect fit and the right person qualified to be on that mission. And just as a side note, Christina Cook obviously just built some incredible momentum, inspiring so many young girls and women alike to pay attention and support space exploration recently. I've just had so much fun with this because I've loved space exploration for so long. It's been such a joy to have so many other women engaging with space and caring about space. And I know this is disenfranchising so many people that have just gotten into the space pipeline. So with this incredible momentum and the intent to land the first woman on the moon for Artemis IV, it's just a surprising time to make this choice. By the way, one moment of joy here though is CSA astronaut Jenny Gibbons. She was one of the Artemis II backup astronauts alongside Andre. Andre, is going to be the lead Capcom for Artemis III, aka the person who's sitting at mission control and talking to the crew. She was a Capcom for Artemis II as well, but she will be leading that charge for this mission, which I'm very excited about. That aside, I can at least tell you I am extremely excited individually about the crew members that were selected for this mission. They are all amazing people, and I still cannot wait to cheer them on as they fly into space and complete this really complicated and interesting mission. So let's first talk about the one person I successfully predicted would be on the Artemis III crew, and that is ESA astronaut Luca Parmitano. He is Italian and has extensive piloting experience, and he was chosen as the pilot for the Artemis III mission, which is an extremely pilot-intensive mission. He has a test pilot background, has logged more than 2,000 hours of flying time, is qualified on more than 20 types of military airplanes and helicopters, and has flown over 40 types of aircraft. He has flown to space twice in his career and has a lot of spacewalk experience. He's conducted 6 over the course of his career, including a lot of complicated ones that were designed to upgrade the alpha magnetic spectrometer on the International Space Station. This is a big magnet that studies dark matter. And he also was a part of a very scary one where his helmet began filling with water. Him navigating the situation effectively has been one of the most famous parts of his space career. He made it back safely, but showed he's really ready to respond to any situation. So my biggest reasons for picking him were 1, that test pilot experience, 2, I thought that ESA was likely to have an astronaut on this mission, and he'd done a big burst of press over in Italy over this past month, and it was really interesting. He had all these collaborative Instagram posts on different press things, so I was feeling like this was very likely that he was doing kind of a press tour a little bit before he came over here to America and is now going to be on, the Today Show and CBS Mornings and all that. A lot of people were picking Alexander Gersh for the spot, another ESA astronaut, but I do think he has a high chance of being on Artemis IV. I also just personally love Luca. I followed his last mission to the International Space Station really closely. He was up there with Andrew Morgan, who recently retired from NASA, and they just had so much fun together. They were a blast to watch, and they just gave me so much ISS joy, and I'm really excited to see him fly again with this new crew, and I'm sure he'll be bringing a lot of the fun, great moments to it. Now, Andre Douglas, Frank Rubio, and Bob Hines were all on my short list, but I did not pick them in my predictions. I was closest to picking Andre because he was a backup for Artemis II, but ultimately didn't because it was his first time flying in space. Which is also what did me in for Artemis II and not picking Jeremy Hansen. So will I learn my lesson for Artemis IV? We'll see. I am really glad that after putting in all the training for Artemis II, he's getting his chance to fly in space for the first time. He was a member of one of the more recent astronaut classes selected in 2021. And this man has a lot of degrees, by the way. He's got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the US Coast Guard Academy, a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Michigan, a master's degree in naval architecture and marine engineering from the University of Michigan, a master's degree in electrical and computer engineering from Johns Hopkins University, and a doctorate in systems engineering from George Washington University. So, he knows his stuff for sure. He's also served in the US Coast Guard and worked at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, working on maritime robotics, planetary defense, and space exploration missions. Thinking about it more now, it makes sense that they picked him because there's a pretty fast turnaround from here to when Artemis III is supposed to launch, and he already has so much Artemis training under his belt, so it makes sense that he would be in the logical pipeline to be picked, given that he doesn't have to learn everything from scratch. And next up is Frank Rubio, who has a doctorate of medicine and was a US Army aviator and physician for over 19 years. And his biggest claim to spaceflight and NASA fame is that he broke the record for the longest single duration spaceflight by a US astronaut during his 371-day mission to the International Space Station. Note this record wasn't intended to be set when he launched. The Soyuz spacecraft that he flew up on had some problems, so they had to send up a replacement, which resulted in him staying up there a little bit longer than maybe was originally intended. So just like Luca, he has experience in dealing with unanticipated situations in space. He's been serving as the class advisor for the NASA astronaut class of 2025, who I'm sure is going to be cheering him on, which is going to be fun to see. And I had thought that this might be what takes him out of the running for the Artemis III assignments because these are 2-year cycles and they won't be graduating until 2027, but it seems that this active assignment is overruling that other role and did not take him out of the running, which was my mistake. As a side note, Frank also speaks Spanish and has done a really great Spanish language tour of the International Space Station. If you want to check that out, I'll put it in the description and here's a quick clip.
El almacenamiento es muy difícil en la estación, pues solo tenemos cupo limitado y por eso pueden ver que en cualquier lugar que se puede se mantienen diferentes partes, diferentes cosas como comida o ropa.
Random funny story, he famously lost track of 2 tomatoes during a harvest for an International Space Station experiment that were found nearly a year later by another crew. So we'll be sure to keep an eye out on any Nutella that he lets float around the cabin. And a quick note on the backup crew member Bob Hines, since he was also on my short list. I didn't make a prediction for a backup crew member because I didn't expect them to announce that yesterday. Last time, the Artemis II backup crew members were announced a bit later after the original crew selection. But super excited to see him on board. He was the Crew 4 pilot and has a lot of test pilot background experience. He's also done a lot of support for the development of Orion and the Human Lander System program, which will be put on test during Artemis III. He served as a handling qualities and flight control specialist for the program and assisted human landing systems teams in cabin design and human factor assessments. This is usually when astronauts come in and do different procedures they would do in space and provide feedback to teams on design changes they could make to make it easier or better for astronauts to do their jobs more effectively, especially if this is in a microgravity environment. So he's a super solid backup choice, already having a lot of the knowledge. Last up is Commander Randy Bresnik, who I did not have on my short list. This will be his 3rd spaceflight, and he brings shuttle-era veteran experience to the crew. I did predict we would have a veteran on this crew, but I just did not think it would be him. He served as assistant to the chief of the Astronaut Office of Exploration since 2018. He is a retired colonel in the United States Marine Corps and has logged more than 7,000 hours in 95 types of aircraft, rotorcraft, gliders, and an additional 3,600 hours in spacecraft. Honestly, I don't know if I had a chance to clock this one. The only main clue I knew of was his extensive test pilot background in the military, but his last spaceflight was 2017, so he's been a lot more behind the scenes recently. It's been in a more administrative but very important role, assistant to the chief of the Astronaut Office for Exploration. The chief of the astronaut office right now is Scott Tingle, who is currently ineligible for flight assignment, so I mistakenly assume that the assistant to that person might also be ineligible for flight assignment. And the thing I didn't realize in this role was that he's been really involved in helping astronauts be involved in the development and testing of all the vehicles and aspects of the Artemis mission, from Orion to rovers to spacesuits. So that was a piece of info that would have been a bigger hint that I didn't pick up on. So there you have it. This is your Artemis III crew. Commander Randy Bresnik, Pilot Luca Parmitano, Mission Specialist Andre Douglas, and Mission Specialist Frank Rubio. This is a great group. If you're feeling disappointed, I understand, but I promise these people are also great, and that means that all the women that are not flying in Artemis III are still eligible to actually land on the moon for Artemis IV. I know I didn't get my prediction exactly right, but still happy with getting 1 out of 4 once again, and decently close on a few others. And I'll say, making these predictions isn't about getting them perfectly right, but it's about exploring the thought process of who's eligible and telling you all about all of the amazing astronauts that we currently have at our NASA Astronaut Corps. So I will continue to do this for future Artemis missions, and let's see if maybe I can get better than 25% next time. And if you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe, do all the things. I have a lot of really cool space science and even space pinball videos in the pipeline that I'm planning to get out later this year. I've made a lot of other short form content that you can see in my shorts tab, but I'm really excited to do more long form this year. So thanks for stopping by and hope you'll stick around.